All right, this is another episode of Hanging with Bushy. I am Bushy. Now, you might know not know who this guy is on the other side of the screen, but I discovered him a month or so ago out of a Facebook ad. I took a chance, ordered the product, and I've been blown away by it. I needed to share it with you guys. I reached out to him on Messenger on Facebook, of all things. He said, "Hey, yeah, man, I'm down." We set up a date. We had some glitches, but we still got it the same day. I have with me today Mr. Rocket Stahr. How are you, sir?
I am very good. And how are you, Bushy?
I am not too bad. I'm
Yeah.
kind of stoked.
You're bushy from the chin down, but not so much from the eyebrows up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, see, longtime listeners know how I got my name. It's because of the beard. And it was actually a joke told on another podcast. Big bushy pussy face was that was what they called it. And I thought it was hilarious and just stole the name. I used that for a while, and over the years, bushy is what you have.
I hear you. I hear you.
So
well, fits.
I want to talk about both projects you have out. You have the movie Rocket Star's Death of a Rock Star.
Yes.
I highly recommend this thing. It's great. I'm not a cartoon guy, which is why I wanted to talk to you, because it was that good. You know, that is like, okay, I'm recommending this to people. You can also get the soundtrack. Oh, let's get it in here. You can also get the soundtrack from the film. And he also has an album entitled Rocket Star. It's great stuff all around. What brought all this about? This persona. I love the makeup. I'm so happy you're in makeup today. I was wondering about that. That's glorious.
I'm glad that you would say that because, like, it depends a lot. Most people who become fans do, and they love, the Rocket Star makeup and the whole thing, which is why I do it. Although it changed this year, the makeup when I was first doing it was much more basic, and this might shock you, but this isn't my real hair, so my hair was different. When you do get some trolls on Facebook here and there, I run ads for my movie, and once in a while somebody will say something like, "Good sound, lose the makeup," or you look like a clown or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but all the world loves a clown, so it's not a bad thing. I'm just glad you said that. The last guy I interviewed said the same thing, because the people who get it get it. And if you're not into it or you don't enjoy the makeup, well, cool, man. But maybe it's just not for you. You probably get that it's about a bit of a show, a bit of fun, a bit of throwback to when rock and roll was a little more. I know you say you don't like cartoons, and I'm not really a big cartoon guy myself, honestly. Yet my favorite rock stars are very cartoony in their actual personas, and actually most of the greats are, whether it's the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Guns N' Roses. I mean, they're very exaggerated, in what they are. And that's the fun part about it. It's cartoony, it's larger than life, it's exciting. And, I've probably said this in other interviews elsewhere. And, out of the millions I've given like 4, but like same ideas pop into your head. But yeah, it's, that's why I adopted it and why I went with it, because I was kind of like, well, first off, I was getting older, and I became a Kiss fan in recent years, and I kind of looked. I was like, with the makeup on, you really can't quite tell how old they are.
So wait, you weren't always a Kiss fan?
I was not always a Kiss fan. In fact, when I was younger, I was very much not a fan outside of back in the New York Groove, or something like that, which is technically a Freely solo record.
Right.
A lot of people think that because of the look, the look in the movie and all that. But I became a Kiss fan about midway or a little earlier through working on the movie. Not to go into too big long thing on this, but when I was younger, like in the late 80s or in the mid 80s, late 80s, when I was really coming of age and getting into rock and roll, Kiss was kind of on the let's put the S in sex kind of thing.
Right.
Not exactly their best musical period. So that's what I was really hearing. I'm working on the movie, and I came upon the reason they had the makeup in the movie already was because even though I was a Kiss fan, I was thinking, like, in the future, and there's no rock and roll or anything like that, what's something that would really shock the masses?
Right.
And I'm thinking, like, that's part of it, like that shock value of looking at something that looks different. So anyway, I'm working on the movie. I get to the song "Turn It Up Loud," to the scene in the movie.
What a great song.
My friend Phil, the filmmaker, who was a kind of a consultant, kind of somebody for me on the film as I went along, to say, yeah, this is great, but maybe you might want to think about this. Never told me what to do, but just kind of helped me to have one other set of eyes. Came to that song, And he goes, "Oh, wow, you wrote a Kiss song." And I was like, "A Kiss song? I was trying to write a Slade song." And it's like, "No, it sounds like a Kiss song." I'm like, "No, it sounds like a Slade song." Like I was trying to kind of do something that's like very big, like Slade, in the early '70s. Come
Right.
on, the original "Come On, Feel the Noise," and "Mama, We're All Crazy Now." And so he's like, "Yeah, well, I mean, he was a lifelong Kiss fan, so he's like, yeah, that sounds like kind of a Kiss kind of thing to me." I'm like, "All right, whatever." So when I go back and I'm animating work on the movie, I kind of sometimes would look for like things to listen to while I'm working. And I came across Paul Stanley's autobiography. And I was like, "Well, I'll listen to that." So I'm listening along. And sure enough, when he would talk about a song here and there, I want to know what he's talking about. So I go and look on Spotify to hear that song. And it got me discovering stuff I didn't know, like Black Diamond
Oh,
and,
all-time favorite song.
just so many stuff. And that was deeper than what I was thinking of, things like less, of course, just total fun party band. But hearing a song like that, that's really kind of, dramatic and cool and really what rock and roll is about on a basic level, that's what kind of got the ball rolling. And sure enough, partway through the bio, when he's talking about when him and Gene were trying to decide what the band should sound like, he's modeling it after Slade.
Right.
So that's kind of why that song, to me, I'm trying to emulate Slade and Kiss is trying to emulate Slade, and we both end up sounding kind of like that. So I kind of thought that was sort of a funny thing. But anyway, I became a big fan listening to that book, and then I'd start listening to the records he's talking about, and so I became a huge fan. Got to see the last show they did here in New York, in December, and yeah, so now I'm a huge Kiss fan.
Oh, that's awesome. You saw the Madison
And
Square.
yeah,
That would have been a dream. I moved to North Carolina 5 years ago. So
oh wow.
I was actually about 6 hours north of New York. I was in Watertown, New York.
Mm.
But that's because I was stationed at Fort Drum, and so was my dad. Um, it's funny you had this whole Kiss element, Slade element, because even Rocky Star with the makeup is very Paul Stanley looking in your animation and your drawing style. Now,
Yeah, it's funny, like that wasn't the intention. And I have had people kind of say that and even draw, because I get fan art, which is blows my mind. And a couple pieces of fan art looked like Paul Stanley. And
that's
I never thought of that before at all. I modeled him after his look primarily. Originally, I was going to go for more of a Bowie-ish kind of thing, but then I ended up ultimately modeling him after like a mixture of Jimi Hendrix, Slash, and Phil Lynott from
Thin Lizzy.
my head, Thin
Gotcha.
Lizzy,
Yeah.
my head right now. So that's really where the big afro and the slightly long face and just the features. It's a combination of them. I think those are three of the coolest looking guys in rock history. And I thought, well, that's what I want him to look like. It made sense, and that's why he's half black and all that, because that was the character. That's who he was kind of based on visually. So that's why he looks like that.
Well, it worked really, really well. And I could pick up a lot of different influences when I'm listening to the movie. I don't play the CD nearly as much as I'll put the movie in, just because you got the visual.
Yeah,
Like I
of
said,
course.
I'm not an animation guy. So that's a credit to you, sir. You said this was in the ads and on your page, your Facebook page, you talk about how it was an 8-year process because you had no animation experience whatsoever.
Nope.
How exciting and or frustrating was it trying to get this thing to come to life and get everything to line up? Because it's done really, really well.
Well, the process, exciting is the last thing I would ever say to describe. Tedious, frustrating, life and soul crushing, shoulder destroying. The whole movie took 13 years when you include the amount of time it took to record all the music, which took about 5 years, a little longer, really, because I then redid all the guitars and vocals and bass at the very end of the process. And the animation is something I've said before, and I'm sure I'll say 100 times again. I didn't intend to do this all on my own. It's not like I went, I'm going to make a whole animated movie by myself and fuck everyone. Just what, no sane person would do that. I did it out of both complete naivety and the fact that I didn't have millions of dollars to hire people. I was originally I wasn't even supposed to be animated. I didn't even know what I wanted it to be. There's so much more of a story to it. But when I did decide, okay, it's gonna be animation, I wanted it to be something that looked kind of like the animation in Heavy Metal or Pink Floyd's The Wall, that animation. Like, I'm not a cartoon guy, kind of like you said either, but there's
Right.
certain animation like that I fucking love that heavy metal movie animation. The animation in the wall is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted something more dramatic and cool like that. So I was like looking at first I went to animation houses and I'd send them literally the script and like, a song or two. And they'd be like, well, this sounds like a cool project, but unless you have millions of dollars, we can't, we're going to sit around. It was so naive and, just ridiculous for me to think like, they're gonna be like, yeah, we'll take this on and we'll just see where it goes. So then I would go to YouTube and try to find indie animators who might, be like, oh yeah, I'd work. But even they were like, you don't really understand what this entails, And I didn't, because nobody does unless you're sitting down and doing it.
Right.
So, cut me off if you think I'm going on too long with any of these.
No, you are fine. You should listen to my other podcast. My co-host, he's impossible to edit.
Okay. So good thing you left him at home. There's probably your home right here. But eventually I was just like, well, I got to find a way to sort of to sell it to people. I'm not an illustrator or animator. I used to do portraits in high school and stuff like that.
Right.
Was a decent portrait animator, drawer, but I was never good at cartooning or, caricatures or anything.
Sure.
So I was like, well, I've got to find a way to kind of sell this to other people. So maybe I'll try to design the characters myself. So I think you got the Blu-ray, right? There's one of the bonus features on there is sketches, hand-drawn sketches that I did of the characters originally.
Oh, see, no, I'm going to be ordering the Blu-ray. I got
okay.
DVD because, I was taking a chance. I don't know if I was going to like it.
Oh, of course.
So I was holding back a little bit.
Sure. So on the Blu-ray, there's bonus features, and one of them is the original character sketches I did of some of the characters on paper, which are more realistic looking drawings of them. And then I also have the very first sort of computer sketches I did to try to simplify them for animation and, some fun stuff like that. But I brought an animation program and was like, all right, let me just try to design this stuff. Cause I want to get a whole package together to try to get financing maybe. And, so I thought, well, what's a type of animation I can do? And I thought, well, Yellow Submarine I love. And that's a lot more simplified, a lot more just basic, not quite as insane. So that's kind of the basis of the style of animation in the drawings, the long legs and stuff like that, like the characters in Yellow Submarine. And so I started kind of drawing the characters. I bought this program it was called Toon Boom Animate at the time, I think, and would draw them. And then I figured, well, let me draw a couple of scenes, just draw visually what I think they would look at. One of them is the very first kind of opening scene in the movie where he's got his arm up in the air and there's the audience behind him. A very rough version of what you see in the movie there was the first drawing I did. And I did a couple others. I got to the point to where there's like the scene in the second song where there's these army hands kind of coming up, or these metal hands are turning a guy into a soldier. And I was like, well, people, if I'm giving these storyboards to, they're not going to quite get what that is. So maybe this program, you can just kind of move something like that. So let me do that. And I would do that. I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. That looks neat. You can actually see the anime. I was like, let me try moving this then, because now that makes that look more. And it's like one of those things I often describe where like it's really dirty and you're like, ah, shit, you clean it apart. And then you're like, oh, now that looks bad. And you clean that. And before you're like, well, now I got to clean the whole thing. And it's like, before you know it, 8 years later, I did an entire fucking movie on my own. And I didn't really understand what I was getting into when I was like, well, I might as well just continue to, I've started now, might as well keep going, and it went on so long that the entire program changed. Like they upgraded it, got better tools in it. They changed the name from Toon Boom Animate to Toon Boom Harmony. So by the time I got to the end, it looked so much different from the beginning that I had to go back and kind of upgrade the first half so it had better shading and all these things. It took me many, many more months. So you can kind of see that progress in the movie. You can sort of see how I actually started animating the second scene first, and it's much more herky-jerky and basic, the first couple of, or the second and third song. Then I think I did the fourth and fifth, and then I went back into the first song. Right. Then I continued from there. So you can kind of see the different levels. It's not like the exact same skill level of animation running through the whole movie. It's various, degrees of it. And so that very first animation I ever did is still in there. I did upgrade it so there's more shading and stuff, but the actual animation and all that, it's the very first thing I did. It's in the movie. Oh,
that is awesome. When you were writing the opera itself, and I know you on your Facebook ads, it's a rock opera to rival The Wall, to rival Tommy by The Who. Very ambitious. when you think people don't know you or your work, but you
Yeah.
go in and listen to it. The way I've been telling people is, if you're a fan of the Phantom of the Paradise, you're going to love this film. Even if you don't like animation like I don't, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, I definitely saw a 60s vibe, early 70s vibe to the animation style. Um, I'm a product of the 70s myself. We're probably in the same neighborhood, same age, because I was born in
Mhm.
75. You know, so there's
I'm
a
your
lot of it
elder.
that I really enjoyed. I'm the elder. Is that what you said? Or you?
I'm your elder.
Okay.
I'm
So
I was born.
more than
I'm
50
70. I'm
people.
73. I'm 50.
Yeah,
I have no
50,
problem saying
51.
that. Yeah, you're 51 in August.
Outstanding. 50 of February. So I definitely.
Nice.
Um, the songwriting process. I mean, you wrote this rock opera. Uh, you did that, I'm assuming, before you decided, hey, let me animate this whole thing and make a movie out of it. What 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 in the world would possess you? Hey, I've got some ideas in my head, but why don't I write an hour and a half long musical story in the vein
Mhm.
of King Diamond, who's all of his albums are stories, or
Whoops.
your Who, your Pink Floyds, your things of that nature. What was it that said, let me just write 30 songs?
Yeah. I can answer that. I can answer that. Um, First, let me touch real quick on some of the stuff you said there at the beginning. The whole, like, yeah, you've seen the ads that are like really, boastful, like, can this unseat the Tommy's the Who? And oh,
I
I get
love
so
it.
much
It,
shit
it
from
got
that from
me.
people that are like older than us. Some of them get like really offended by that, and I'm kind of trying to explain to them, yeah, well, but you're paying attention now, right? That's the whole point. Not that I
Yeah,
really think this is better than the Who. We're really going to rival. I'm a little guy in his apartment doing this, but it's the king of rock operas, and you want that throne, you shoot for the king, right? And it's that
absolutely.
kind of thing where you have to say something to get people's attention or do something because it's so hard to cut through the noise. So
Yeah,
that's why I say that in that particular ad. And some people get it, and some people just, they just don't want to be bothered. Whatever, you're not going to win everyone over. You mentioned the Phantom of the Paradise, and that's another one. I just did a Instagram and Facebook Live right before this interview, and somebody said something about, oh, when you play those songs live on the keyboard, because I've got my keyboard right here.
nice.
Um, they said it, really gives me a feeling of Phantom of the Paradise, and other people have mentioned that, and I gotta say, I'm not really a fan of that particular movie, and I feel bad saying that because I had never seen it. That's one of the ones I had never seen, and I only heard about while making this.
Oh wow.
Went and watched it, and I was like, huh, that's kind of odd. I mean, I love all the characters, but like I didn't quite connect with it. Maybe I have to go back and watch it again. I probably should. It's always one of those kind of things. But all that said, I appreciated I totally appreciate what I saw and all that, and it's interesting and the weirdness of it, and
Right.
I get the connection. So, what you actually asked, what possessed, what gave me the idea to do this kind of thing? I had done, not to get into my entire life story getting up to that point, but in like some point in 2007, first I had recorded a demo of 5 songs. Some point, I think in early 2007 or late 2006. It was Death of a Rock Star, 60 Summer Heartbreak, Ballad of a Starry-Eyed Child, which it was called then, I think, uh, Umbrella, all 4 of those from the movie, and
Right.
then 2 songs, one called One Last Lullaby and another called The Conversation. And it was kind of a return back to some stuff I had done in the 90s when I used to work with live strings and horns and woodwinds and stuff. I'm a self-taught composer, and I used to do a lot of that in the 90s. I've also had punk bands and a bunch of different type of music. So it's kind of a return to that. And I went
Right.
to do a show in New York City. It was the first thing I had done in a long time. Did it at the Mercury Lounge, had the whole string quartet, had backing singers, full band, and it went really well. Maybe it was like 100 people there, something like that. But at the end of the day, I was like, this cost me $1,000 to put on.
Right.
And what do I have to show for it at the end of the day? It's gone like that. It was a nice experience and all. So I was like, if I'm going to put that much time and money and effort into a work of mine, I want it to be more for posterity, something that I can have to really show people this is what I can do.
Right.
So at first I was just thinking I'm going to just record a bunch of my songs. From the years that I've done, like, because there's so many, like I said, I've had punk bands. I've had orchestral rock. I've done singer-songwriter acoustic-y stuff. I've done flat out hard rock, bluesy rock. So I've done alternative, very Nirvana style rock in the mid 90s. So I have so many different songs, different genres. I thought, let me just do it like a double record, real out there, and put that together. So I was doing it and putting that together. And I thought, everyone's always telling me my music sounds like I should do a rock opera. And I am a huge fan of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Nice.
And, Rocky Horror Picture Show and Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Those last two are actually musicals, not rock operas. But,
Right.
Evita, that's a rock opera. Huge fans of Jesus Christ Superstar is a big influence on, well, not influence. People told me I sounded like a young Andrew Lloyd Webber many years ago. And that got me into that original record. So I was like, well, let me, do a rock opera. And I thought, well, let me ask my friend if he'll write a script or a story to, because I've never written a story. I never thought of making a story.
Right.
So I went and had dinner with my friend Phil, who I told you ended up being a consultant on the movie. And I said, hey, man, I want to do a rock opera. I was like, do you think he's a filmmaker and a writer? And I said, do you think you could maybe write me a story, come up with a story? Just listen to a whole bunch of my songs, seeing if you can find a story there. And he was kind of like, he never really wanted to say no, but I could kind of tell, it's like, are you crazy? You're supposed to listen to 100 of your songs and find a story to be. He's got a fucking life and a job. It's like I just don't really think sometimes. So I was like, all right, and I went off. And then one day, shortly after that, I was going to meet my wife for dinner and waiting for the subway. And I've said before, it's like 90% of what you do when you live in New York City is wait for the subway.
Sure.
So I'm standing there waiting for it, and just literally out of nowhere, a story hit me like a lightning bolt. And I'm not even exaggerating that. About 80% of the story you see on the screen, I'd say, just hit me. And I was like, oh my God, I have a perfect song for that scene and a perfect song already for this scene. And I know how that would fit there. And by the time I got to see my wife, I was like, I got to tell you this. I got to tell you this story that I just came up with out of nowhere. And literally what I told her was about 80%, like I said, of what you have there. And of course, Death of a Rock Star was the first song. And so that was kind of what got me to that point. And then little by little, I'd go through it and say, okay, I have this scene, this scene, this scene. This scene I don't have a full song for yet, because like I said, there's other songs I even recorded demos of already, but I've had Turn It Up Loud and Just Like Magic were ideas and melodies I had in my head for maybe a couple years at that point, but I never sat down to write. 2164 is a piece of music I had written in the mid 90s and just kind of had bouncing around my head. Never wrote lyrics for or all the orchestration and stuff, but it was this long, weird piece I had. It had, these pieces that are I just had no use for. What was I going to do with that song in any other context?
Right.
And so I was just like, this would be perfect for that. And there's maybe a couple songs I wrote specific, like Repent. I was like, I have nothing for this. Let me quickly see if I can come up with something that fits. And I did that. So it's interesting because some of the songs, because of that, have sort of dual meanings. In particular, the song Death of a Rock Star.
Right.
Now, it seems like in the context of the movie, it's obviously the movie's titled after it. It's what goes on. It's specifically for it. But the reality is that was written about David Bowie's last performance as Ziggy Stardust.
Oh, wow.
I had read this article, this cool magazine with all these old Enemy articles about glam and reviews from the early 70s. And I love it. And there was one, it was an interview with him in it from 73 or 4 something. And he talks about his last show. And he was talking about how he felt basically, the character had been a way for him to be free himself to be anything he wanted at first, but it eventually became like a cage to where he couldn't do anything else creatively. He had to be Ziggy Stardust. And thus, the lines in there, the character had killed the man, like a rat in a cage, So if you listen to it in that context, that's what I'm actually talking about. But it also dual meaning works perfectly in the context of the movie. So there's a few songs like that in there that have that dual kind of purpose. And that's way more than you asked me to tell you. So
no, that's great information. It makes me want to start listening to the soundtrack as its own work, as opposed to putting it on where you're, I don't want to say distracted, but frankly distracted by watching the story unfold.
Sure.
And once you get to a certain age, you include lyric sheets in the CDs. Make sure you get the CDs, folks. You include
Yeah.
lyric sheets, but look, at our age, the eyes don't work like they once did. I don't always have my glasses with me because I'm
I
at that
believe
age.
me, I know. My eyes are getting terrible lately, and my own lyrics. I'm like, I can't read that.
Yeah, but it's beautiful because there's only one or two songs where the lyrics aren't on the screen for you. You know, they're either flashing at you in weird ways or they're in little, comic book bubbles. And I'm pro comic book, so I guess there's a lot of reasons I do enjoy this film,
Hmm.
and the music. Uh, I'd like to. Well, first of all, the lady, Miss Ahmed, is that correct?
Abby Ahmad,
Yes, Ahmad. Yes, I'm sorry. How do you find her stuff? She did such a great job.
she's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've only actually met Abby once, the
Oh,
night we
wow.
recorded those songs. I when I was at the point, I think this was actually the very last thing I did of anything before getting the music, before mixing the music and then getting it mastered, was to record her vocals. And I put the call out on Facebook. I have a lot of musician friends and such, and so does anybody know a great female singer who can do rock but also has a big wide range? And I got like 30 suggestions. Went through all of them. I was amazed at the talent out there. All but maybe a couple of them could have been contenders. Some just really great singers, but none of that was quite perfect. There was this one young girl some friends from high school suggested, and I kind of really wanted to give her the part at first, but then she kind of sort of backed out or something. It was like, okay, cool. I think she was like 16 or 17 or something. She had an extraordinary voice. But so I'm still looking, and the oboe player, Katie Shield from the movie, she played oboe in the movie. She messaged me and was like, "I have a friend who's a tremendous singer. She sings with a Pink Floyd cover band called The Machine, I think they're called." And I either she linked me to, or then she got me in touch with Abby, and she sent me the link for a clip on YouTube of her singing "The Great Gig in the Sky." And I heard that, and I was like, "Wow, she has a fucking voice."
Yeah, because
And then
that's
I
not
looked
an
up a couple
easy
more.
song.
It's no, not at all. And then I looked up a couple more clips because I wanted a little more other stuff too. And I had found, I think, something of her, like, I think she might have been like acoustic singing some Zeppelin or something. And I was like, she's got it. That's her. So I contacted her, sent her the stuff. She really liked it, wanted to do it, set it up. Went to a studio of her choosing because I wanted her to be comfortable. It's a friend of
Sure.
hers who had like a home recording studio, and met up that night. She had the songs down like that. There's very rough version somewhere, I guess, of me singing those songs because I had that because I've never had somebody else sing my songs before.
Right.
I've had somebody else play parts that I've written, all that, and I know how to direct that. I don't quite or didn't quite know how to direct somebody singing wise to get what I wanted. I had to
Right.
be very specific. So first I sang it with inflections that I wanted in certain things. Gave it to her, said, please emulate this. But then if you have other ideas, I'm willing to hear them when we go in the studio. So we went over the parts, in the studio. She's sing them fantastic, like almost every take she did. And I'd have her sing with my inflections, and she got on the spot on. And then here and there, she'd also do it with something that she thought might be expressed well or do something. And I really directed her. I was like, well, no, okay, maybe do this a little that or a little softer here, a little higher here. And each direction I gave her, she was like, no, fuck you. No, I'm just kidding. She was totally the total opposite. She was just like, took it. She was like, sure, let me try that. And she'd do it spot on, total professional. Couldn't have been more pleased because I felt like I was being annoying. I wouldn't want somebody else to dictate to me how I'm supposed to fucking sing something.
Right.
Granted, if somebody's paying you, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And I was. And yeah, she just really took every little direction I gave her, nailed it. Of course, I took, of course, we always sang a bunch of takes, so I'd go home and edit together what I wanted or didn't and all that.
Right.
And yeah, we hung out that night, did the recording. I forget how long it was, maybe 3 hours, something like that. And I haven't met her since.
Oh, that's
We've
wild.
texted a couple of times since then, because when it was done, and sent her links when it was, debuting at film festivals and such. And we're Facebook friends and all that. But yeah, I haven't, we actually we actually did. I don't know if we still do live somewhere in the same neighborhood, not too far apart. But I just, we've never met each other outside of that one night. But I
Wow.
couldn't be more grateful of what she added to the movie. with their
Oh,
vocals, because that other dimension, since I'm singing literally everything else,
right.
getting that other dimension in there, and quite a dimension where she's, twice the singer I am, really, I feel like elevates the movie to another level.
It's great. I mean, I know you don't understand the Phantom of the Paradise, but the guy that's doing Faust and picks the girl, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, she was obviously, there are different kinds of singers. I don't want to say better because I think better is demeaning to you, and you did a great job.
Thank you.
But it's a different kind of singing,
Yeah.
But yeah, she knocked it right out of the park. Sad to know that you haven't seen or heard from her. Do you think that's
Oh
somebody
yeah,
you would
not like
work
any
with
kind of
again?
weird thing. It's not
Well,
like
no,
any
no,
kind of
no,
weird. It's just
no.
kind of like that we met just for that purpose, and you
Well, did
know,
her job and went. I get
yeah,
that. Is that
yeah,
someone you
sure.
would work with again?
Oh, if I had, well, I actually did have her do a forgot about that during the pandemic. I will probably talk about this when we talk about the other CD. There was one song that I had her do a background vocal on, just center files, because nobody was supposed to be seeing each other at that point,
Right.
during the pandemic, and that wasn't released at all. But if I had need for that kind of vocalist, I'd probably reach out to her first. Sure, if
Okay.
need be.
Outstanding. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Because this is huge. I mean, I want to get to your album as well. But Death of a Rock Star, I can't talk it up enough. My family knows I'm not a cartoon guy, and I sat my girlfriend's nephew down and said, "Look, dude, watch this." He knows I'm a headbanger. I like metal, but I like everything. That's why I want so much information on this, because most of the guys I pal around with are metalheads. And so I want to expose them to something different, even though 95% of them are all Kiss fans too. I said, look, sit down and watch this. And this is a young kid, 16, and rap is the thing and everything. Even he enjoyed the film. He thought he was going to hate it. So I think it's multi-generational. I think it's something that every generation can find something that they like up to a certain point, because some people, once they're old enough, you can't change their minds.
Yeah, sure.
But I think it's just an absolutely amazing film. I did something I don't normally do, because I always support the artist. That's why I bought all the DVD and the 2 CDs. Is I got a buddy that's a big fan of rock operas in general, big fan of Phantom of the Paradise. So I actually sent him the digital. I said, here, check this out. Let me know what you think. But with this guy, I know if he likes it, he'll be ordering it from you soon enough. I just haven't heard back from him yet. He's going through a lot. Father just passed away, so thinking about you, Dr. Fuck. Singer for a thrash metal band that I listen to. But I don't typically do that, just so you know. I don't just send it to people.
Sure.
We all, like, I'm not a Spotify subscriber because they don't pay artists shit, so I don't listen to it. I buy physical copies. If I can't get my hands on a physical, I will buy the digital copy. You just kind of threw that
I
in.
mean, we've all shared, for our whole lives, we've all shared tapes with each other, and
Sure.
DVDs and CDs. So it's the same thing, really. It doesn't, I mean, look, we grew up at a time where we would tape our favorite songs off of the radio,
Yeah, and
or
people
make
don't
or
understand that
make
at all.
mixtapes for each other and stuff.
Yes,
That's just part of it.
sure.
Of
But
course, I
it's
hope
really
everybody buys it, but that's part of it.
well, absolutely. And at the end of all this, I'll make sure we get all your information into the episode, so that if it's something they're interested in from what we're talking about, come on, look at the guy. You've got to go buy this movie. It's great. I can't sing enough praises about it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing all that. And I know, and I say that to everybody. It almost sounds like I'm saying the same thing over like a robot, but it really is. I mean, like I just, we've talked about, I'm 50,
Right.
I'm going on 51, and I've been making music literally since I posted recently. I should put it live on YouTube. I didn't, but I sent it to my email list and posted on Facebook a clip of me doing literally my first live performance at a club with my very first band in, it was August 22nd, I think, 1991.
Wow.
So that's how long I've been making music and pushing and trying to get what I do out there. It was much different than it is now.
Sure.
But so to finally be getting people responding, even just from when I finished this, like I got the music mastered literally like I think a day after New York City shut down for the pandemic. So it's taken me this long to really get a good push going with it, because of other things that went on in life and a couple of false starts of promoting and that. So to be finally now, as I'm advertising, you know, on Facebook and Instagram and getting people that are coming in and buying it, and people like you who are like loving it so much, you know, that you actually wanted to interview me, which, you know, that kind of stuff still blows my mind. I am genuinely incredibly thankful and humbled. You know, if somebody who looks like me can claim to be humbled, um, by that kind of like, you know, praise, if you would call it that, or kind words, and the fact that you're enjoying it that much, it's like that means everything to me. That's everything I've fought for the last 35 years or whatever it's been, is to finally be getting people listening and going, that moves me. I love that. I've been listening to that multiple times, and this is the first time I've had that, and I'm watching the fan base build, and I just couldn't be more appreciative. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Don't thank me too soon. If we can help you blow this thing up more, we're going to need Death of a Rock Star too, and good luck.
I don't think there will be a part two. That's almost for sure. I will say I have ideas of, and even songs recorded for a second rock opera.
Okay.
Which in maybe not the next record I do, but the one after that, I might put together the first half of it. It won't be, if it ends up being animated or anything, it definitely won't be by me, but at least put the music out there. And it's going to be a lot more fucked up and weird than this one. It's
Nice.
it's not going to be like I'm repeating myself, like, oh, it's kind of like Death of Rockstar, Death of Rockstar Part Two. It's just more bizarre, on multiple levels. Just, you know, to do something different. But
Sure.
I like the story aspect, so there likely will be another one. It'll just be done differently in this. So probably be 2 CDs released a couple years apart, and you know, if I can, I've got the bulk of the story. I've got to finish it, but yeah. So
Well, that's
there's a
exciting.
rambling interlude there.
No, that's actually exciting news. Um, Real quick, bring back that rock and roll. You're talking about Mott the Hoople, you're talking about Rod Stewart, you're talking about Guns N'
Yeah.
Roses. I mean, there's obviously a wide range of musical influence. When you're not working on writing your own stuff, is that the stuff you listen to all the time, or do you go into a completely different zone just to get yourself ready and kind of free and clear, so not mimicking something you're influenced by? If that makes sense.
No, when if I'm gonna write, when I'm more of this style, in the mindset of writing, I'm gonna be mimicking somebody
Well,
to a large degree. You know, it's like, well, we listen to a lot of music at home. My wife and I are like, we're music junkies,
sure.
and luckily we have the same taste on literally like 99%. And I'm talking about ranging from like loving John Denver and Gordon Lightfoot, to being big, you know, Iron Maiden, Metallica fans, and Guns N' Roses, to being the Beatles, both of our favorite band, to Fleetwood Mac, and like the whole gamut. There's like, you know, 1% of stuff we don't agree on, and we really dig into each other over it. But we're listening like all the time, even a lot of like 80s pop. I'm a big fan of mid 80s top 40. So, but when I'm in a mindset of writing, and it happens to me even sometimes if I'm not in the mindset of writing, a melody will just come to you, or a song idea. It's largely been driven by, oh God, I love that. I want to do something like that, which is partly why I was never successful, because I get, you know, I do the orchestral thing for a couple of years, and I get bored of it, being like, oh man, I got really into George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. I was like, I want to do some more singer songwriter acoustic type songs, and so then I'd write some stuff like that. Actually, one of those songs came on that the Rocket Star CD called Diana, and you know, so that's kind of other people's music. It's not like I'm trying to mimic them in a way, but it's what inspires me or makes me say, oh, I want to do that. I think I can do that. That sounds like it'd be a fun type thing to write. And if you have any originality in you at all, and especially because there's no way to get rid of all the other influences in there anyway, if I try to write a song just like an act, it's not going to necessarily sound like them. It's going to sound like a different type of thing. You know, outside of some, like I think Turn It Out Loud is very much like a Slade or Kiss song, but you know, some others, and you know, Just Like Magic is very much like an ELO song. Even though I was actually, that's another way of looking at it. I was listening to Roy Orbison at the time when I wrote that song, and I was like literally on the train, and sometimes I'll be listening to a song or two from them, and I think it was him was like crying or something, and and I'll kind of pause and be like, let me see if I can come up with a melody. It's kind of Roy Orbison-y. And I came up, I started thinking of the in a sea of unfamiliar faces. Like I just kind of came up with that kind of melody, like oh, it's very Roy Orbison-y.
Right.
And I kind of held it in my head. I think I might have quickly, hummed into my phone. And but then when you get home, you start playing the guitar or the piano, and it becomes a whole other thing, and it doesn't end up sounding like Roy Orbison when it's done.
No, ELO
You
is
know,
you hit it out of the park with that one, and I get
I
that
wasn't even
influence
trying.
on
I
the
wasn't
other
even
album.
trying to sound like ELO. That's the thing. I was trying to do a Roy Orbison song. Even though
Right.
Jeff Lynne did work with him in the late '80s a lot. So it's just kind of like those influences, they intertwine a bit. And even when I'm trying to do something like somebody else, generally it doesn't come across like that.
Right.
And I think that's how I learned to write. I definitely learned to write like that, by you try to mimic your heroes, but then you try to do something new with that. You try to push
Yes.
that somewhere beyond.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I have to be inspired by other people's music, the stuff that I love, to motivate me and drive me to do more. On that new CD, there's a song called Galactic Pioneers.
Right.
And that's the very first and so far only sort of synth wave song I've written. And the only reason I wrote that was last year. I had been doing, there's this company called Taxi, and different like record labels and publishers and music clearance and music licensing companies. They put listings through this company of what they're looking for at the moment.
Right.
And I was trying to do that to kind of monetize what I do. I'm a songwriter. I feel like I can write anything, put my mind to it. And so listings would come up periodically, and it would kind of be like, I think I could do that. And one came up. They were looking for a mid '80s synthwave song for commercials, to submit for commercials or something. And it just sounded like this, that, and then they always give like 3 samples. And I think this one was like "Take on Me" by Aha, a Depeche Mode song. I can't think of which one, and some other synthwave song. I forget which one. So it was 3 of them, and I took them in my head and I listened to them over and over and over again to try to get that feel inside of me, that vibe of, like electric drum beat, and synth sounds, and you're trying to kind of embody that in a way. And I was on literally, they give you like 2 weeks or something, so you have to like literally write it, record it, and submit it.
Oh yeah. So you're working.
So as I'm literally on the train, and what I start doing in some situations like that is I started running through my head almost like a ticker melodies, like like almost like a thing I've learned to do over 35 years, until I hit upon a melody that suddenly I go, ding, that seems like somewhere to try. Let's try starting from there. And I remember being on the train, and I'm going through my head, humming lightly and humming it into the phone. By the time I got to where I was going in New Jersey, I had the main melodies for that song. And so anyway, that's kind of how, like, I would have never written that song had there not been like a reason, like, and oh, here's some stuff I like, or somebody wants this kind of thing. And when you listen to it, you don't think it sounds like Depeche Mode or Aha. If anything, everyone keeps telling me it sounds like a David Bowie song, which is like great for me. But
I know. I mean,
it
if you're
came
going to be
out sounding
compared to
like me.
something,
Yeah,
that's
but
not the
that's kind of
worst
how.
one.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I've always worked, and which is why there's such a wide variety of types of songs on the opera and even on that record and stuff, because I'm always kind of going for, I love that kind of music. Let me try to write like that. Oh, I love this guy's music. Let me try to write one like that. And there's this weird hodgepodge of things, and that's not generally what the music industry wants. So it's been kind of hard to be successful.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell the music industry wants anymore.
Yeah, I don't even really give a shit.
Yeah, it's like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, that's Death of a Rock Star. Again, at the end of this, we're going to have Rocket here give you the website where you can go and purchase it, or click on one of the ads. That's what I did. I got all 3 for a fair price, and he sends you the digital downloads. He sends you a sticker, and he autographs everything. So it's a fucking win-win for you. So check out Death of a Rock Star. It's
Well, yeah, that's if you get it through the ad. The ads are a special deal.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that's what I did. I took a chance, and I just fell in love with it. It's great. And I like independent artists anyway. Everyone says rock and roll's dead. I mean, when Gene Simmons says it, I'm like, no, it's out there. You just have to look for it.
Mm.
All right, let's talk about the album, Rocket Star.
Yes.
This is fun. It does have an alternate version of a song that is on the Death of a Rock Star album.
Yeah.
I prefer the album version
Mhm.
just because the guitars are a little crunchier.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's actually the original version. I know I call it the alt version on there because it would maybe confuse people a bit, but that's actually how the song was originally written.
oh, nice.
When I went to do the movie and I thought, oh, this this song would be great for that scene. I just kind of felt like, but it kind of works for, why do you throw it all away? Like that also kind of works in the context of the movie, for what's going on there. But just I felt like it needed more lyrically and vibe wise to change things up a bit.
Sure.
And so again, it was one of the situations where just like an alternative chorus and lyrics and stuff like that hit me, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do it like that. And then when I was going back later on, I was like, gosh, that version works. And a lot of people like the version in the movie better, oddly enough. And some people even say it's their favorite song in the movie, which kind of blows my mind. But when I still really felt like, God, I really feel like that original version has something to it with the chorus is kind of catchy and it's
Yeah,
got the cool riff in the beginning and the juxtaposition between that and the kind of ragtime-ish verses.
sure.
I always thought that was a fun kind of thing. And so that's why I eventually went back and thought there's nothing wrong with having two different versions of a song now. Hell,
I,
Guns N' Roses had two versions of Don't Cry, and it was
I was going
basically
to
the same
say,
song with different lyrics and melody. So why not me?
sure, sure. And, Guns N' Roses, I like the one on Illusion 2 more as well. So I'm always the odd man out when it comes to stuff like that. When exactly did this come out? As opposed to the film and the soundtrack and all that. When did
I
this come out? This is
think
pretty
I
recent, isn't it?
I think I put it out in March, I think. Early
Okay.
March, maybe, something like that. I forget the exact date. Um, yeah, that was kind of actually the second version of a record I started during the pandemic. You know, after I finished the movie, and like I said, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. That rolls around, you're, confined to your apartment for God knows how long. There's
Right.
nothing to do. So I'm like, one of the things about the animating for 8 years is I almost never picked up an instrument. I don't think I played the guitar in the entire 8 years. Once in a while, I turn on my keyboard and just see if I can bang out a couple ideas. Maybe a slight bit of an exaggeration, but basically, I was not a musician for 8 years.
Right.
So I was like, that's what I am. I only did the movie and animation to push my music and
Sure.
never knowing it was going to take me that far away from my actual music. So let me start recording, putting some stuff down again. So I didn't have any drums or couldn't go to the studio. So I get my djembe. I have a big giant drum called a djembe. It's like a thing you paddle on. And I
Right.
took that and kind of like did sort of like a basic drum tracks of a handful of songs, just use my computer to record. It was very loose and jangly, but I would do these recordings, do these fun videos. That's when I came up, the first one of videos I did, no makeup and all that, but it was partway through doing that I started doing the early version of the makeup, and would post them on my Facebook page, and my friends and family, just kind of entertain them and entertain myself. That's what we were all doing back then, trying to communicate and entertain each other.
Sure.
So by the end of it, I was like, okay, wow, I have like the full album's worth of material. This is cool. Let me just mix it and master it and put it out there. And so I did, but then when I was finished, I was like, it's just not there. The songs I was very proud of the songs, but the quality, it was just way too, I mean, it was supposed to be just a home, banging on kind of garage thing, but it just wasn't, it just, to me, it wasn't quality enough for me to really feel like I should put my name behind it
Right.
or who I was. And, the Rocket Star thing I was trying to promote, it needed to be, especially coming off of that movie and that record, it needed to be my first thing to show people from there, needed to sound to be more professional. And it kind of just sort of like really took the wind out of my sails for a bit. Cause I was like, oh, fuck, had kind of, you know, really worked and I was kind of proud of it and did not put it out, kind of bummed me out. But eventually I started kind of working again and just, I got actually a drum machine and a bunch of really great drum samples. So I get a better drum sound at home and just, yeah, I got a new guitar. I got a Les Paul. It was the first nice guitar I've ever actually owned. The thing I did, actually, I borrowed a Les Paul to do from my friend to do the Death of a Rock Star stuff. Got a new bass and just really kind of worked on doing tighter versions of some of the songs, like Cinderella Suicide. There's a song on there called Better Than Before, Reunion, and Little Diseases. Those were all on that original record, and I did more souped up, better professional versions on this one. But then I felt like overall I didn't quite like my song choice on it either. So I went back and grabbed a song called Sick that I had from like 20 years ago, refurbished the lyrics to read the lyrics to it, recorded that, that's got the big org that opens the record. It's got the organ on it and stuff. I actually do that on the keyboard here. That's all on the keyboard and going to organ sounds on the computer. Sure. And then just, really went through, and that song Galactic Pioneers, I told you I had just written that last summer. And just a few others from that period that I was like, okay, because I always want to I have so many songs to pull in from the past, but I always want to have at least one or two new things I've written to excite me a little bit too, and just to prove myself I can still do it.
Right.
So it was basically a completely reconstructed, redone version of that rough first Rocket Stahr CD I was going to put out, but never did. And that's what you hear. But then I have finished that, and I heard, I was like, that's representative of what I want to be my first statement. And it's got stuff on there like somewhere down the line. I mean, it's kind of like the Death of a Rockstar CD. It's got new stuff I've written, and it's got stuff that goes back to literally when I was 18. Somewhere down the line, the verse and chorus melodies and the chorus lyrics I wrote when I was literally 18 years old.
Wow.
But just knew I wasn't a strong enough songwriter to figure out where to go with. I didn't really know how to write a proper bridge back then, and to really take the song where it needed to be. So it just was there. One of these things was in the back of my head. Oh, God, that's good verse and chorus. It really sounds good, but never knew what to do with it until like maybe a year or two ago. Finally was like, all right, let me try. And I just kind of was run through it in my head while I was washing the dishes, and boom, there's the bridge. Perfect, works perfect for it. Here's where I should go with the solo, and it just all kind of came together. So it's almost like I co-wrote with my 18-year-old self all those decades later of putting a song together, and that's on there. So I'm really proud of how it came out ultimately. It still carries on the classic rock thing that I started with Death of a Rockstar. There's no real orchestration on it because that time I couldn't afford to do it, and it's a lot to put real orchestration on things. So it's a little different in that regard, but I think it's a great follow-up to it. I personally, of course, I'm going to think that's mine, but I'm just very proud of it. I'm trying to get that out there, along with Death of a Rockstar being the drug that brings people in, and then hopefully they discover the next stuff I'm going to release. And I'm hoping to do a record once every year and a half for the foreseeable future, now that I'm back in the swing of things.
Well, I definitely look forward to it. I love the album. You were speaking on ELO on the Death of a Rockstar thing, but I don't remember what I was doing around the house, and I had this playing, and I was like, that takes me to 1981's ELO Time. I mean, like Yours Truly 2095. I'm like, wow, I don't know if it was the keyboards. I don't know what it was, but I really got that vibe out of it. And I can't even tell you which song it is. I mean,
I'm guessing it's Love Never Dies.
I was going to say, yeah, it's on the first.
Because there's some songs in there that I can definitely hear, the ELO influence come through. It's funny. I was just telling the last interview I did last week was I'm a big ELO fan. I love Jeff Lynne. He's a fantastic producer. Love their music, but I never thought of them as a musical influence on me. I always, Queen, Bowie, T-Rex, those are all big, Beatles, Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses. And as much as I love ELO, I never really thought of them as being a big influence on me. But then people started telling me, oh, I hear a lot of ELO in your music. And then when I listened to it standing back a little, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so. I guess that came through. And my suspicion is, beyond the fact that even if it's not something you're into, subconsciously, we're influenced by stuff anyway, especially if you listen to it a lot like that.
Right.
I think it might be a little bit because Jeff Lynne and ELO is very Beatle influenced. Is very much building off what they did and just adding orchestration. Like Can't Get You Out of My Head is a very John Lennon song.
Sure.
And since I'm a massive Beatles fan, it's very likely that since when I write stuff that's kind of Beatle influenced, and then I add my orchestration in, kind of like that whole thing of me thinking I'm writing a Slade song and so is Kiss, and so we sound like that. it's me trying to write Beatlesy stuff, and so is Jeff Lynne, and we both end up sounding like that. So that's my theory on that. Although it's very likely that they just influenced me, and I'm thrilled if that's how it comes across, because they're fucking great, and he's a fantastic songwriter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, no complaints there. I think it's outstanding for old heads like us. It's the perfect length album. Guys our age, we tend to like records that are 10, 12 songs max. You could put it on vinyl, flip it over.
Yeah.
That's the way you're supposed to listen to it. I highly recommend when you get this stuff, because you need to go out there and get it. When you get this stuff, you listen to it as an album. Yes, the Death of a Rock Star soundtrack is going to take you some time, but bitch, you listen to The Wall. So I don't want to hear it. Okay.
I was all, and I'm very, like you said, it's supposed to be, you listen to it all the way through, and I get it. I listen to Spotify, and my wife and I make playlists and all that too. So I get also just listening to, things in out of order stuff. But for the people who don't want that, because I, like you, grew up with records where you kind of put it on and listen to the whole thing most of the time, I was very fixated on trying to get a flow with that track listing. I went back and forth a couple of times. I almost had Cinderella Suicide first, and wasn't sure which to go. Like that. I was really I put a lot of intensive thought into how it should flow from beginning to end to feel like a work, especially hard considering there's so many different types of songs. But I feel like it has a flow, and there's 12 songs specifically, because for me it all goes back to Appetite for Destruction. The record that got me into rock had 12 songs. So I always kind of think of that's how much songs a record should have, should be at least 12, even though it's back in the day, some records only had 8 songs, I think Boston's first record had 8, and a lot of Sabbath records only have 8, and they're fantastic. But it seems like more than 12 it starts to feel like you should have edited this down a little bit more. You should have, should have sifted it through. It feels, a little too many to me, unless it's a double record, which are some of my favorite some of my favorite records by bands, Physical Graffiti, and Max Tusk, even though that's not their quintessential record, is my favorite record of theirs. I love those records too, but they should be specifically like that. It shouldn't be like, a single record and we just didn't know where to cut down.
Yeah,
it's like, if it's going to be a double record, really make it that thing.
Exactly.
Say, this is a double, this is a larger work. Don't tell me it's a single record and have 17 songs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The CD era, yeah.
Yeah.
Started that. A lot of the circles I go in are like, an album should be 30, 40 minutes tops. Get in, get off, get out, know, kind of thing. And this delivers on that. I mean, I think it's great. I haven't spent as much time listening to it as I have Death of a Rock Star. Like I said, I put it in a lot because I could watch it too, even if I'm puttering around the house when I'm not at work. But I couldn't recommend this stuff more. Yeah, Love Never Dies. That whole ELO thing just threw me off because I was actually doing something else. It was almost background, and I was like, "Wait, what?" Because I see what you're saying about the Death of a Rock Star film and soundtrack, where you had some of those influences in there. It didn't hit me the way it did on this album, where I was like, "Oh wow, there's an ELO grab." Not grab, but obvious some ELO influence. I think it's great. I love the fact that there's no metal on it, that this is strictly a rock and roll album. And a lot of people have forgotten that, because we think of hard rock, and look, who doesn't love hard rock and roll? This is a straight rock and roll album. The Death of a Rock Star is a straight rock and roll album. It's dynamite stuff. I love the praise to the glitter and the glam. Yeah, you can still find that on this album too. It's obviously, your bread and butter. It's your niche. It's your biggest influence. It's the glitter and the glam. To me, it is what comes across to me. I think it's, just absolutely amazing. Rocket, tell us how we can find all this stuff.
Unless you see the ad, you can always go to my web store, deathofrockstore.com. Not Death of Rock Star, Death of Rock Store. Very clever of me, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I've got all this stuff on sale there. The DVD, the Blu-ray, the double CD soundtrack, which comes with the lyric booklet, the new CD. I've got the official Death of a Rockstar T-shirt on there. I've got some Rocket Star stickers. I'm going to soon launch a Rocket Star logo shirt.
Nice.
You know, for the first time, probably around 4th of July. It's a little inside information for you there. Probably going to do a 4th of July sale that's tied into the release of the official Rocket Star shirt,
Sweet.
logo shirt, and I'm excited about that. So yeah, that's where you know, outside of that, you can follow me on Facebook. Just look up my name, Rocket Stahr, Stahr. And Instagram, you know, I try to be active on both of those, you know, a few times a week, and I reply to people. If you message me, I'll, you know, even if it's not right away, I try to find time to reply to everyone. I mean, I even have people, you know, messaging me sometimes to ask how to play one of my songs or to evaluate one of their things. And, you know, so I don't have the time right away, but I try to, you know, reply to everyone. And, you know, people who buy my stuff end up on my email list, and I ask a lot of questions on there because I like to interact with the fans as well and learn. You know, I'm at a small enough level where I can learn about my fans as they're learning about me. So I ask questions in my email list periodically about, you know, what do you think about politics and music? And, you know, how do you think that rock and roll can bridge the generation gap? Like things that I find interesting that some people reply to and some people don't. But the replies are always very genuine, and it makes me learn. I even tell them about, you know, what turned me on to rock and roll in one of my initial emails I send to people. And you know, it's awesome because I'll get replies from some people that really go into it, and they tell me like paragraphs and paragraphs of what they love about rock and roll, what got them into it, what it means to them, what went on in their life that got them into music. And I find it so like special that they're sharing that with me, that they would see in me and what I'm offering to them, you know, an opportunity to express themselves that way, you
Right.
know. And even if it's a lot to read and reply to, I read through every single one, and I try to reply in kind as much as I can. And it's kind of a beautiful thing, you know, that kind of a fan base, building it like that. You know, if I get to like, I've got 1 million fans, clearly I won't be able to do that, but that's not in danger of happening anytime soon. So, in the meantime, yeah, if you order from my store, you'll end up probably on my email list, and hear about more of what I do and coming up in the future. And yeah, I hope you love it. You know, I hope you get something out of it. You know, as much as Bushy here has.
Yeah, I hope you guys too. I hope you go out there and buy the product. You know, I hate to sound like I'm selling your shit, but I'm going to sell your shit. And frankly, my other podcast is called the Plug Podcast, and that's what we do. We plug stuff.
Mhm.
You know, definitely go out there, take a chance, take a chance. I've seen there are a couple songs on YouTube. I did do a check to make sure nobody's got the damn movie up, because that would just make me mad, because that's why I don't Spotify, is because I
Yeah,
want.
somebody said it the other day. They said, "Oh, you know, I had seen somebody had put it up there in parts, the whole thing." I was like, "What?" Like, and then I went and looked. I didn't find it. They said, "Oh, I can't find it now. Maybe they took it down." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't find it. Hopefully they didn't." You know, I'm very mixed on the whole copyright thing. I'm actually, you know, not to get into anything political, but I'm very much an anarchist in that regard. But it just seems like a shitty thing to do.
To
But
somebody.
I have, for somebody to do that, you know, to breach my trust, especially knowing that I'm not Disney, you know, I'm
Right.
not even like Hanna-Barbera. You know, it's like, you know,
Not
I'm
to do
doing this
shaking
all on
leg
my
at either.
own. It just seems like a bit GRO. It's just something kind of mean to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I do have like 3 or 4 of the full scenes and clips on there myself,
Yes.
for people to watch. And even through my ad, if they click through my ad, there's a good 3 or 4 full clips for them to check out, because I understand, you know, like you said, it's a chance. You haven't
Right.
heard of me before. This weird thing, somebody saying, "Oh, it's an animated rock opera feature film, 26 songs, you know, buy a DVD or Blu-ray of it," you know, like. So I feel like there's some enough clips out there to give a little bit of assurance that, you know, this is maybe something interesting to check out, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I've tried to put enough samples out there to way, you know, I figure even if it's 4 clips, there's 26 fucking songs in the movie, and each
Yeah.
one of those is a whole clip that, you know, that's not giving away the farm, but, you know, gives them a nice taste, you know.
Absolutely. But before we part ways, I know you're busy. God knows I have to work in the morning. I just have to say, without giving away the end of the film, we'll go back to the film real quick. The end and bullshit. I laughed hysterically. I laughed hysterically. I'm like, this guy gets it. You know, I mean, obviously the politics are injected to it. And the answer to that question is I'm all for it. And 9 times out of 10, I don't agree with it. I'm a dead Kennedys fan and I don't go that way. So I love music.
Yeah,
I respect anybody's,
that's exactly
ideas and
how
such,
I feel. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
uh, but that very end, and for those of you that watch it, I'm not going to tell you, I'm just going to say bullshit. Hilarious. I thought it was great. What a
I'm
great
so
way
glad people
to
respond so much to that ending, because I do feel like it's a, I was pretty proud because you really want to leave on a bang to some degree,
yeah.
and I feel like with what leads up to that, it works with, like, giving you a nice and fun
Yeah,
chuckle and applause, or whatever, and
absolutely.
again, without giving away what happens there and what that's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Check it out. Rocket Star's Death of a Rock Star. Check out his album, Rocket Star. It's fucking great. If you order through the ads, I'm telling you right now, you get a great deal. You'll when I bought them, I got the DVD, the soundtrack, and the new album, and I got digital copies of all. Well worth the money invested, all autographed. And he's not lying. We have this interview because I reached out to him on Facebook Messenger. So the dude's legit. I wish you all the best. I'm looking forward to the next album. Keep me on the mailing list. I'm horrible for responding to emails, but I'm reading every one, just so you know. I'm just
Yeah,
bad for responding to them. I'd much
that's
rather do
totally
this
cool.
than this.
I totally hear you. Totally, it does take up a lot of time, but yeah, I totally hear you.
Yeah, it's man, life gets in the way of living sometimes. And
Yeah, I mean, you know how to reach out to me on the messenger when I'm like I don't want to get on the phone. I don't like
well,
like like my parents. That's about all I talk to on the
I was going to get
phone.
into this whole big thing. Like I just
Oh,
moved
I
five
know.
months
Yeah.
ago, and I don't have internet at my house. I'm actually at my girlfriend's house right now
Oh, wow.
because we live literally 50, 100 feet away from each other. But I'm in the mountains of Western North Carolina. I'm in Podunk Hill
Wow.
land, and the cable company, the internet company, says they have to come and survey my land to make sure they can hook me up. And I could look down and see my girlfriend's house, and she has the exact same company. So guess what, Elon Musk? I'm buying your product this weekend because fuck these other guys. I've waited 5 months. I'm going with the satellite.
Awesome.
But yeah, check out Rock Star. I think man, Death of a Rock Star, his album. I think it's absolutely amazing. I couldn't sing any more praises to it. When I drop this on YouTube, I will have the links to deathofarockstore.com in there so you can go purchase it. Or I do share the Facebook ads. I don't know if they're popping up in your feeds, but I've been sharing the ads every time I see them because I want you guys to buy this product. Check it out. Do you have anything final you'd like to talk about? Anything at all? Or
Hmm. No, I don't. I really don't. I don't know what to say for myself. Not
oh,
at all.
I think you're doing a great job. But and I genuinely I look forward to hearing more from you. I think we need to bring more people to your platform to hear your music because there's not a lot out there today that's great. You definitely have to dive deep. You have to go underground. The underground is where rock and roll started. It's where rock and roll is right now. And I couldn't
Mm,
sing more praises or be more proud of the product you
it's
put
true.
out. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Bushy. And like I said earlier, I genuinely and sincerely, I can't tell you much. I appreciate hearing that. It really means a lot to me.
Well, good, good. You keep up the good work. Keep us informed. I'm already following your Facebook page and such. And if I'm not hearing anything, I'll be like, hey, bitch, where's the new shit?
Give me a year. Give me,
Yeah.
I have actually, there are basic tracks and stuff I have started recording. But what really happened is, like, when I started finally, not to get into a big long story because we're ending here, when I started really finally being able to get into promoting stuff earlier this year, that's become like the bulk of my time. So it's been real. The irony is, like, things are starting to go well with me selling the movie and that, but it's eating up so much time. I haven't been able to actually make new music yet. I'm going to get a new computer because I think that'll make things faster for me and all that. But I plan to start getting to work on the new stuff soon. And I'm hoping in about a year from now, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but about that, I am hoping to have Rocket Star 2, the follow-up record out. And I'm hoping also maybe later this year, I'm not 100% sure, but hopefully I'm going to put out my first vinyl copy, my first vinyl, which will be of the Rocket Star record, hopefully later this year. I'm going to see how that goes, but that's something I want to do. I've never done it before.
Make sure you send all of us on your email list that information, because I'm a vinyl head. So that is something I will be first in line to purchase from you, sir.
Awesome. You
All right,
will know.
Rocket Star from New York, from the old stomping grounds, just a little bit south.
Yeah.
Into the city a few times, but man, if you go to New York and you don't have a good time, no matter what time that clock says, you are doing New York City wrong.
That's right.
Greatest city on the planet. Rocket Star,
Yes.
thank you so much for being on Hanging with Bushy. I hope we could do this again
Thank you.
sometime, probably
Sure.
when the next album comes out.
Absolutely. That you have my word. As long as I'm standing, I will absolutely come back.
All right, outstanding. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for the great music. Thanks for the great animation and the labor of love, because God knows that had to be.
Yes, very much so. Emphasis on labor.
Yes. All right, brother. You be good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.